men need help here. Like no one's speaking to them. No one's really helping them in this area. And just looking at it and knowing that men aren't raised to be able to express themselves emotionally in a confident way. Like you guys are kind of taught, maybe indirectly, most of the time indirectly, to not express what you're feeling because it may not come across masculine, or don't cry because, that's not a good look on a man. Like you want to show strength and be strong. So there are all these messages and no one's really helping guys navigate and understand themselves so that they can be confident in their relationships with women.
Welcome to Modern Happiness, where we believe happiness is a choice. Our goal is to share how we and our high-performing guests choose happiness, covering topics such as fitness, mindset, relationships, business, and much more in today's world. Here are your hosts, Matt Mahalik and Taylor Sleaford.
Welcome back, everybody. Another great episode of Modern Happiness. This time, we are working via Zoom. We've got a special guest outside of the Denver area. Matt, who do we got?
All right, guys. Today, we got Steph Ganowski. She is a coach for men. Specifically, her signature program is called Relationship Mastery for Men. And not only relationships with people in their life, like their spouse, their family, friends, etc., but, and maybe more importantly, men's relationships with themselves. And I had a call with Steph the other day, and man, her passion is palpable. So I'm so excited to have her on. And so without further ado, let's welcome Stephanie. How are you today?
Woo! I am good. I'm amazing. Thanks, Matt.
Amazing. I love it. Cool. So let's jump right in. You guys know the deal. We're jumping into some rapid fire questions, Steph, so the audience can get to know you a little bit. And Taylor's going to take it away.
All right. I'll start us off. So Steph, where are you from and where do you live now?
I'm from New Jersey and now I live in New York City. So Manhattan.
Our producer's excited over there. Big New Jersey girl over there.
Jersey, woo. I hate when people hate on Jersey.
Same.
Pro-Jersey.
No one gets it. It's awesome.
They don't get it. Yeah, just because they haven't lived there, they don't get it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I grew up in Connecticut. Where in New York are you?
Fidei, so lower downtown.
Nice, cool. I worked down there for a few years, building the World Trade Center when I was a civil engineer. Good times, good times. Okay, so next question. What's your favorite thing to do for fun?
This is going to sound nerdy, but read.
Oh, not nerdy at all.
Oh.
Love reading. It's going to be a perfect lead.
Huge book nerd, love it.
Yeah, we've got another question coming for you on that one. But third question, what is your most used emoji?
I believe it's the laughing face.
Oh, there's so many
That's
laughing
solid.
faces. Is it the crying laughing?
Yeah.
Is it the crying laughing
It's
but
like
no
the
tears?
typical, it's like the normal laughing face.
Yeah.
The most
okay.
used one.
Yeah. Okay, nice. Do you know what a walk-up song is?
No.
Like if you were playing baseball or you're a boxer, you have like the song that you come into, gets you all hype. What is your walk-up song?
I want to say Boss Bitch.
Nice.
I forget her name, that like female rapper.
Yeah, Cardi B.
I'm a bitch. I'm a boss. Not Cardi.
Is that?
We didn't even have to ask her to sing it.
I know.
This
I
is
always
the
love
first.
that.
Yeah.
I love when people sing it. No, what's her name? The other one. Nicki Minaj?
Doja Cat.
Yeah, Doja Cat. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Never would have guessed that.
Never.
I'm
Yeah.
way off there.
Yes. Okay, big reader. What is your favorite book?
My favorite book, I have a lot. I would say one of my all-time favorites is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
So good.
Yeah,
Classic.
so that's probably my top three.
Must read.
Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins is a close second.
Oh, I feel like we'll get into
Possibly
that.
first.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. All right, Steph Ganowski, do you have a nickname?
Steph, SG. Yeah.
SG, initials. I like it.
Nice. What did you want to be when you grew up?
When I was young, what do I want to be when I grow up now?
No, when you were younger. Yeah, when you
When
were
I
a
was
kid.
younger. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of adults are sometimes asked that question.
Still figuring it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was younger, oh my God, I would change it all the time, but I remember wanting to be a veterinarian, because I loved animals. And yeah, I never really took that anywhere. Like it was just a childhood thought. And then, as I grew, it changed a bunch of times, but I just remember really always wanting to do that. So
Nice. Do you have any pets?
I do. I have a Chihuahua named Pico.
Nice.
And growing up, I had like 2 cats. I had turtles. I had a snake. I had, what else did I have? Another little animal. I forget, but I had a few animals, and I've always been an animal lover.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Final question. What is your superpower?
My superpower is perspective shifting. I think I'm really good at seeing things from different viewpoints. Probably because I have to help my clients see things from different viewpoints, but it's a skill I've definitely advanced over recent years, and I'm really proud of it.
Nice. I love that. It's cool. That's a new one.
Very, very cool. Okay, rapid fires are over. So to kind of get started, I would love to hear a little bit more of how you got to where you are. You know, Matt gave you that intro, and you are a relationship coach for men, which I think is really unique because it seems like in today's world, there's a lot of times you'll see men coaching men or women coaching women. So I'd love to hear a little background, kind of how you got into doing what you do now, what that looks like, and why specifically men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is always the number one question I get. Like, what made you do that? And it was really a mix of self-exploration, because I was in this place of holding a lot of resentment and anger towards men. And I was actually one of those women in my younger years that was like, well, am I allowed to curse on here?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'd be like, fuck men are assholes. Like nobody needs them. And I had that mindset. And of course I would still date men, but guess what the guys were like who I dated? You know, they were assholes. They were just confirming my belief, which at the time I didn't know I was attracting those guys because that's what I really believed about men. So it was, you know, partially due to that. And that's where it actually started, was like, all right, when I realized that there were some men who came into my life that started helping me, and they really didn't show any signs of wanting to use me or, you know, being an asshole to me, it made me question my belief around it. And I was like, wait, like these guys are really, they're not after anything other than being genuine people, it seems. Like this is weird. And it was like the first time in my life when I noticed that. And I was like, there must be other good guys out there. Like my belief must be wrong. And it was that first time. I've always been like a psych, I was a psych major. So I'm really into like the mind and understanding people, but this was just such a huge block for me emotionally based on events in my past. So when I finally was able to call out my bullshit and be like, wait, I've been attracting these types of guys. Not all guys are like this. I have to see like why men who are like this are, and like how I can get in the heads of like, and work with the good men to understand just like how men are feeling. Like I just had all these questions that like came into my head of, you need to figure out men so that you can help heal from your pain and your past, and also help men and help future women who've been in your shoes. So it was just like this whole mind fuck of like ideas and things that popped into my head. And that's when I read the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. I don't know if you guys heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Really famous, popular book, right? About the gender studies of differences in male and female behavior. So I read that book, and at the end there was a certification, and it was like, become gender intelligence certified. And I was like, I don't know what the fuck that means, but it sounds really cool. And it sounds like it's fulfilling the answer. It has the answers that I need right now. So I took the course, I got certified, and then they were like, all right, well, you need a niche. Who are you going to work with? And just looking at, I went into it feeling like I wanted to work with men, but it was just like that. At that point I realized, wow, there's so many dating coaches, like you guys are saying, that are either women helping women, but guys helping guys. And most of the people I saw helping guys were either like these pickup artists that were like, how to sleep with her in 2 days, or it was very much, heartsy, fluffy content that was like women who were dating coaches for men and women. But all the marketing was so feminine. And I'm like, no one's really speaking to men about, relationships. And I was more interested in the emotional communication, because with my past trauma, like I was missing that emotional connection and emotional understanding of where guys were. And that's why I took that route of like, men need help here. Like no one's speaking to them. No one's really helping them in this area. And just looking at it and knowing that men aren't raised to be able to express themselves emotionally in a confident way. Like you guys are kind of taught, maybe indirectly, most of the time indirectly, to not express what you're feeling because it may not come across masculine, or don't cry because, that's not a good look on a man. Like, you want to show strength and be strong. So there are all these messages, and no one's really helping guys navigate and understand themselves so that they can be confident in their relationships with women. So that's kind of where I saw this big problem, and I didn't see really many people speaking directly to men about this. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to be the woman that steps up and does it, because I feel like to help men through emotions, it's better off being a woman than a guy, because guys are always competitive in nature. And especially when it comes to emotion, guys are not less likely to open up and be honest with another guy about insecurities they're feeling than they would a woman who is emotionally more intelligent than them innately. And they can have more security and comfort in a woman's space. So I just found like a lot of it made sense, and I put the pieces together and I was like, this is what I got to do. So yeah, that's pretty much where it started.
I love that, man. That resonates so much with me. I think I want to learn more about myself. I don't know if I understand myself. And my background is actually college strength and conditioning is where I first started, and definitely grew up in that environment of, you got to be tough. We don't talk about our feelings, and it took a lot of unlearning for me to just be open and vulnerable. And I think what's really cool about what you're doing is I see, because I'm a coach, Matt's a coach too, and the clients that we work with, there's a lot to be said about like having similarities, and I can understand what they're going through. But I think what's cool about what you're doing is, being a female, is you can actually have a complete different perspective, and I think that's what some people miss when they are looking for a coach or looking to hire a coach, is just trying to find someone who's exactly like them or has been through the exact same things. But sometimes you need a completely different lens to look at things through.
Yeah, totally. And that's like going back to like what I think my superpower is being that lens, because when guys have questions like, why would a woman do this? I can answer that question. And then when a guy is like, I feel like I have shame around this, I'm not sure why, like I can give them the space to open up around the shame and tell them like, hey, like I've talked to other guys who go through the same thing, or, hey, it's okay. Like, it's cool. You could just tell me, like, I'm not going to tell anybody. And there just seems to be this certain safety around like, I've had my clients tell me I'm like a loving sister. Which I really like, because like, they're just like, we can have this cool conversation where I can let my guard down and just open up to you. And I know you got my back, and you're not going to like talk shit, and you're going to support me, and you're not going to make a big deal if I like cry on a call. Like, so it's just, yeah, I think there's it depends what the client needs and is looking for, and like, what's the person that I can get that from. So totally.
I love all this stuff. Everything you said in that first monologue there was like, oh my God, so much. Like, I have so many questions, but one thing you just said, guys asking you, why would a woman do this? And then you're there to answer that. Can you give me some examples of what guys are asking? I'm so curious.
What do you mean, why would a woman do that? Like
you mentioned like, oh, guys come and say like, oh, why would a woman do this? And maybe it confuses guys and they don't know how to respond to it. Do you have any examples of that?
Yeah, I have an example today. A guy DM'd me and he was like, he was saying, why do women give white lies? Like, when I ask a woman out, why can't women just say, no, I'm not interested? Instead, they say, oh, I'm not ready for a relationship. And then I see that 4 months later, they're married or they're engaged. And like, why can't women just be upfront? And that's a situation that guys may have experienced women doing over and over. So they think it's a woman problem. And this is the thing too, is a lot of these things guys assume is just women, but they don't realize it happens the other side too. If you flip the coin, like guys are the same way. And how I explained it was like, I posted it in stories and I was like, let's break this down. And just like, first of all, answer him in the sense that like, this is a male and female problem. And it comes from the majority of time, people pleasing, right? A lot of people today have a really hard time saying no. They have a hard time setting boundaries, saying no, letting someone down, because it takes a certain amount of confidence to be able to say, no, I'm not interested in you. Thank you, but I'm not interested in you. That takes a lot of confidence to tell someone that. And the way that women do it, when it comes to women will do it as like a safety way to protect themselves, like the boyfriend excuse. So I'll give an example, like, if a woman is being hit on in a bar and she says, oh, I have a boyfriend, it's kind of like subconsciously telling him like, first of all, I'm taken. Second of all, if you keep creeping me out, I'm going to call him and he's going to kick your ass. It's like that. It's that protective we say that as a way of protecting ourselves because we know we can't physically protect, but if we pretend we have a guy who can protect us, it's like it puts up a shield. So it's like a lot of the time it could be safety reasons. Other time it's like the people pleaser, just general people pleaser tendency of like, I can't say no and I don't want to like turn you down too harshly because what if like I want everyone to accept me, but like I really don't want to date you, but I want your acceptance. It's like, it's that feeling. And then it's also the lack of confidence issue where they can't be direct due to the people pleasing and just say, no, I'm sorry, I'm not interested in you, but thank you so much.
So do you coach your clients if a guy, maybe the reverse situation and a girl comes up to him and is interested? And first of all, girls, man, if a girl comes up to me, I'm like, yes, please, let's talk. Even just to feel it out, right? I think that happens a lot more with girls who are like, nope, get away from me. But what do you tell your male clients who maybe receive that, maybe get hit on by a girl or whatever it looks like, maybe go on a date and don't want to go on a second date? Do you advise them to be like, hey, be honest, tell them, hey, I had a good time or I'm not interested? Or maybe they didn't have a good time and you're like, tell them I had a terrible time. This is not a good fit.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny because I had three of my current clients had a big problem with this when we first started working together. One of my clients, I'll talk about two of my clients. One of my clients just could never say no or like turn them away completely because he was like trying to keep doors open and also didn't want to make him feel bad. And also he felt like he had options, even though he knew none of these relationships would go long term. And I was like, how many women are you on and off talking to? Like just keeping in your back pocket right now? He's like, I don't know, probably a few. And I was like, count them. He counted 6. Like there were 6 women he was talking to that he knew there was no long-term potential. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why are these women, why are you leading them on? Because essentially what you're doing is leading these women on. You're also lying to yourself. You're also wasting time and energy that you could be putting towards your work because you're telling me, you're feeling drained with work. Guess what's part of the thing that's draining you? All these people and these conversations that don't align with your future. In a sense, you're lying to yourself. You're lying to your future self. Like there's so much emotional baggage here that you just got to clear the air and say no and end these relationships. So that one client did get down to dating, couple women. It doesn't mean he had to date one woman at a time, but he got rid of all those relationships in a very respectful, mature way, just being open and honest and direct. And within that first week, he got rid of 5 relationships that he was just holding on to that he didn't need. And he was like, holy shit, like I feel like a weight's been taken off of me. Like, why didn't I just do this before? So that's an example. And we were just laughing on the phone today about it because he's like, I can't believe I used to have like 6 numbers in my phone, just like going nowhere. And then I had another client that he's getting much better at this of just like, I went on a date, but it's been a few weeks and I don't know how to tell her. I don't want to see her again. I'm like, why? Like, just do it. Like, let's write something up right now. And I'll like, whenever my clients procrastinate on something, it's always going straight to action while they're on the phone with me. Like write up the text. And then as soon as we get off, I want you to send it. And then I want you to message me and say that you sent it. So it's like just holding them accountable to, all right, like validating their response and showing them this is okay. Like this is what a respectable guy would say. And there's nothing wrong with you saying this. Like there's nothing wrong with turning her down because you're not interested. You have to prioritize your wants and needs in your future. And if she doesn't align with that, bye. It's okay. It doesn't mean you're a dick. It's just like, let her get on with her life and respect that, respect her time and energy and respect your own. So
I love that. Ultimately, a guy would want the same. If a girl's leading him on and then all of a sudden it's like, I'm not interested. It's like, oh my God, for months, I thought this was something and now it's not. So kind of like, treat women how you'd want to be treated. But I love this.
That's what I did with him. I was like, flip the script. Like, would you want to be hanging around? And when he did tell her, he did have a really good positive reaction. And she was like, thanks for telling me and at least being straight up and honest. So definitely people like that.
That's great. I know Taylor and I, if we're on Hinge or whatever, and all of a sudden 2-3 conversations start happening and it's like, this is stressful. I can't fucking handle this. Like, I don't want any more on my plate. So that's so funny. I definitely resonate with that. What is that like, so you can kind of put yourself in those shoes of maybe you're texting a few girls or whatever. And you said it, that you're lying to yourself. If I'm texting a few girls, but I'm not really committed to a relationship, I'm lying to myself. And that's emotional baggage. How is this harmful? How does this show up in other parts of our life?
Well, it's, if you get clear, and this is something I have all my clients do, is get really clear on like the man they want to be. So it's always about first clarity of where you're going, because you can't get to where you want to go unless you know what that looks like. And you can't get there unless you know where you are right now. So it's getting really clear on like, what's the difference between future version of you, who you want to be, and who you are right now. Like there's a gap, there's some kind of gap. So like, what is the gap, and what actions need to change within that gap so that you can be more like this guy on the end where you want to be. So part of that, like when they explain that guy and they explain his, his daily lifestyle, they explain his values. It's all about like, all right, well, this guy that we explained and got really clear on, would he take this action? And if he wouldn't, and they 100% are like 100% no, he wouldn't do that, then it's like, all right, then you can't do that. Like, what are you going to do to change that behavior? What would he do? How would he handle this situation? And it's getting really clear on that guy that really helps them handle the now to make sure that it's aligned with who they want to be. Because there's a lot more pain when they take an action and full out no, it's nothing like what that guy would do. Like then they feel pain. Then they're like, fuck, this is not the right move. This feels bad. And it feels bad because I know what it feels like. I can imagine what it would feel like to be this guy I want to be. And knowing he would do nothing like this, that feels like shit. Like that feels like I'm not a man of my word. Because if my word is getting to that side and getting to be that guy who I want to be, I'm going against my word. Like I'm going against my word as a man. So it's like when you create that picture and the feelings associated to that picture of their goal and who they want to be, and you tell them straight up, like, this is nothing to do with who you want to be. What are you doing? Like, that's the wake up call. And that's like, oh shit, you're right. All right, taking action now. And there's more immediate action. And there's more like them stressing the point that I got to be a man of my word. I got to be a man of my word. And that's something I get in my clients' minds of like, are you being a man of your word? Because that's where a lot of men feel like they're on the right track and feel good about themselves. One of the main things that I hear from men all the time is fear of not being good enough. I hear it on a daily basis. It's crazy because I worked with women before in the past, like 5 years ago, but I've never heard this coming from women. And even when I talk to my female friends, I hardly ever hear them say things like, I'm afraid I won't be good enough, or I'm not good enough. And with men, it's like a daily basis. I hear this phrase, I'm afraid I won't be good enough, or I'm not good enough. And when these guys start standing by what they know they want to do and who they want to be, and they start aligning their actions to that, it's like the opposite of that feeling. It's like, wow, I am good enough because this is what I want and I'm doing it. Like, and they start, building that relationship with themselves, like, which is what I'm focused on, like their relationship with themselves. And when they can do that, they do start feeling good enough because they're in alignment with what they want and who they want to be.
Oh, baby, I love this. You're speaking my language. This is goal setting. And really how I teach it with my clients is goals are not just things you do. It's about who do you need to become and creating a clear vision. And so it sounds like you really help your clients with a lot of awareness, things they're not aware of, like what they actually want. It sounds like they're going through the motions or just dating the way they think they're supposed to. So I'm curious, what is kind of a common thread or theme? Why do men come and reach out to you? Like, what are they struggling with? And then maybe what are the things that you help them with they didn't realize, you don't know what you don't know. So maybe the common themes of, what you helped them with they didn't realize. Like something Matt always says, when it comes to selling a program, it's like sell them what they want, but give them what they need. So I'm curious what the differences might be between like what they come to you for and then what you really actually help them with.
Yeah. And that's been my, I probably should have put this as my biggest struggle as an entrepreneur, the marketing of, because I know what they need. So like when you know what the client needs, but you got to market something else, it's really like, it feels really frustrating for me anyway. It's like difficult. And I think, what I know draws more attention is when I base it around women. And when I talk about women and like, here's what women want, here's the things you need to say to women. Here's like, if you want to be a strong man in a relationship, here's what you need to do. Like those things are more sexy and eye-catching because it's like, oh, I get the woman if I do this. When really, when they come to me, these guys are just like not happy with themselves. They never give themselves self-recognition for anything they do. They don't acknowledge themselves for what's going right and what they're doing well. It's always about, I got so much, like I got all this other shit to do. So it doesn't matter what I got done. It's like, I'm never proud of myself. Like, I just feel like I'm not moving anywhere. And it's like, once we get on the call, it's never about women. It's hardly ever about women. Like they're always just telling me like, they don't feel good enough. They don't feel like the man they want to be. They feel like, relationships, of course, are like frustrating. They keep fucking up and making the same mistakes, and they don't want to make the same mistakes. So that's something I hear a lot too, is like, I keep making the same mistakes. How do I stop making these mistakes? I don't think I'm ready for dating again right now. I want to focus on me, but I don't know what to do. So it really does come down to what they need is building their relationship with themselves. And just a client I was talking to today, like, got on the phone and he was like all smiles and laughing. It was the first time I heard him laugh since we started working together. And he was telling me how 5 years ago he used to laugh all the time. And he was like this exciting guy with this great conversationalist and used to go out all the time. And he lost that because his relationship was holding so much stress on him. When working together, what he realized was like, I just stopped prioritizing myself. And I started putting all of my validation in her. Like, everything had to come from her. Like, whatever made me feel good about myself, it had to come from her. And he forgot how to feel good about himself his own way, like on his own. And what a lot of men do and why they lose this is because men don't recognize, they don't give themselves enough self-recognition. And the brain is a reward system. The brain works on a reward system for us to do tasks again and again, right? So you have to acknowledge the things that are wins, no matter how small. Right? So it's like always reminding the guys like, hey, this was a win. Like, that's a great thing. You wouldn't have done that last week. And they're like, yeah, but it's not a big deal. I'm like, hey, no, it is, because we need to start small in order to get here. You got to take the first step, and it's going to feel small, but you have to acknowledge it. Because if you don't acknowledge it, you're just going to keep going down your negative loop, your negative patterns. Right? So like, once my client started acknowledging, like, on a weekly basis, he was like, all right, I stuck with my gym routine all this week. I haven't done that in a year. That was like, I reward him for that. And I'm like, whoa, that's awesome. Like, that's so cool. Like, I try not to make it too cheesy and too like, yay. Like, I'm like trying to keep it cool and just being like, whoa, that's awesome. Like, you didn't do that in a year. Like, that's pretty cool. What else? What else happened? So it's just like pulling out their wins and kind of just validating each win, and not saying like, go celebrate that, or like get a drink every time you go to the gym. Like, that's actually not a good idea. But like going, like, you don't have to reward yourself in a crazy way. It's just look at it and tell yourself, I'm glad I did this. And not enough guys do that. They don't take the simple time to just take 2 seconds and say, wow, I did this. I committed to this all week. Nice, cool. And that's really all it takes to start that pattern of uphill movement. When really what most guys do is like, oh, like, I did this, sure, but look at this mess. Like, I fucked up. That's because I fucked up last year, and like, it started with that. And then they just focus on this huge pile of shit when they're not realizing, hey, I'm making movements though. I'm going up here. So it's like having my clients focus on these little steps, start changing, shifting their RAS in their brain, which is your focus center, right? Your reticular activating system that keeps you focused. And when they focus on the wins, they get more wins. And when they get more wins, they start feeling good about themselves. And then it becomes this whole momentum in this way instead of this way.
Oh my God, I love this. Celebrating the wins is huge all the time. Even with my clients, like, I have so far to go. Like, I'm not doing, as we had an episode last time about comparison, and it's like, look where this person is. And yeah, I'm in this whole mess. But to look back and see how far you've come. And when you start, this is exactly what we said last episode, like, start doing the things, even the small things, and then recognize those things as like amazing wins. And something you were talking about before, it's like attracting the same type of people. Like, all men are shitty, and then you're attracting shitty men. And it's like, because you continue to, it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like when they continue to focus on, I need to be here, I need to be here. Oh my God, I just like got out of this shitty relationship, and she was awful. And that's all there is out there, these women who suck, and whatever that looks like. But instead, if we're shifting the focus to like yourself, then getting back to yourself, improving yourself, and knowing that you're good enough, and understanding what that really means, kind of being in love with yourself first. And then that way, I've told someone this, like, when I was dating, it was like, if I get rejected by a girl, it's all good. I don't care. There's plenty more, first of all. And that's not a reflection of me. That's just like not a good fit. And I'd rather know now than a year down the road, maybe we're fighting and, because we were never a good fit to begin with. Like, so cool. Let's get this out of the way. I'm happy with myself. I can go home and be super, excited about maybe tomorrow or whatever I'm doing, for the rest of the night or whatever that looks like. So I don't really have a question off that. I just love this idea that, like, I think if you can really get clear on, who you are, what you want, then you start attracting the right women, probably vice versa for women attracting men or whatever, whoever you're trying to attract.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that, like you mentioned, like getting clear on, like if a guy does feel like I don't feel good enough, it's my straightaway answer is like, what's the opposite? Like, how do you want to feel? If you're not feeling good enough, how do you want to feel? Because I don't want to just assume that he wants to feel good enough. Maybe the opposite of feeling good enough to him is I want to feel appreciated. Like maybe that's his word that he wants, but right now the pain is I'm not good enough. So it's like, all right, you want to feel appreciated. What would have to happen in your life for you to feel appreciated? Like, what would that look like? Paint me a picture of like what has to happen for you to get that feeling you're after. And then it's like getting that clarity, like you're talking about, where it's like getting really clear on, okay, you're really clear that you don't feel good enough, but that goes back to the RAS in the brain, right? Like what are you focusing on? Right now, the main focus is it's that negative thing that you want to get away from, but you don't know where you're going. So if you don't know what the opposing factor is to that negative thought or that thing that keeps taunting you, like, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough. If that's the dominant thought in your brain, it doesn't matter how many other good thoughts you have in your brain. If the dominant thought is I'm not good enough, forget it, you lost. It's that I'm not good enough is going to lead your actions. It's going to lead your beliefs. It's going to determine your life, your future. So it's like, all right, let's get clear, just as clear as you are on I'm not good enough. You have to be clearer on where you want to be. How do you want to feel? I want to feel appreciated. All right, how do we make this as big or bigger than the thought of I'm not good enough? How do we make that the appreciation or like I'm incredible. I have so much value. Like, can we make that bigger? And what has to happen for you to make that bigger so that we can make that the new focus point in your brain. So that's all you see. And we change your subconscious wiring, right? So it's like that clarity on what you want, make that the obsession, make that the new obsession. But you gotta get clear on it first. Otherwise you can't.
Yeah. Without a clear vision, you don't know where you're going. This is so cool. There's so many parallels to how I work with my clients with everything that you're saying. And I love this. And I think even to life, right? If we take a step back, everything you're saying, not just to romantic relationships, but I imagine a lot of your clients come to you and they're like, all right, she's going to teach me how to talk to women or get relationships or whatever. And you're like, no, I'm going to help you have a better relationship with yourself. And that's things that I do because it's like, if you show up as the best version of yourself, then you're going to be better. And that's what you were talking about, where these guys either like lack confidence or they have self-doubt. And when you think about how are you going to show up on a date or asking a girl out or like whatever it is, and that client you talked about who used to laugh all the time, like when you're fun to be around, people want to be around you, and I love what you talk about. Matt and I talk about celebrating wins all the time. And with my clients, I'll make them like, I'll be like, go have a 1-minute dance party and text me when you do. Like, you don't have to video it. No one has to see it, but like you're conditioning your brain to realize that that's a good thing and keep doing it. And I just think it's so funny that I feel like most people I talk to in life, if they have a goal, they think they need to do something or work on, a skill, and they never look inward. And it's like, actually they need to like take a step back. And I think that's what's so cool about what you're doing. So, following up on that, I do have a question. We sent you a questionnaire before, and we asked, who is Steph? And you said she wants to make the world a more emotionally intelligent and empathetic place. And so I'm curious, how would you define emotional intelligence? What does that look like with what you do? And, how do you help men? Where are they now? And then where do you help them get to?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. I help men understand their emotions so that they can express them authentically and in a healthy way. So if guys can understand what that means is like, all right, I'm feeling like this. Instead of just feeling a certain feeling and going and grabbing a drink with his buddies, it's like, wait, you felt this multiple times. Why don't we talk about why you're feeling it? And I take my clients through the understanding aspect of let's dig into it. Let's understand where this feeling is coming from and why it keeps coming. Because there's a reason, right? Like, you probably know this working with clients, Taylor, is like every time someone has a thought or a feeling reoccurring, especially, it's serving them in some way. There's some way that no matter how negative it is, it's serving them in their current lifestyle. So they're not going to let go of it until they understand why. Like, what is that feeling doing? And sometimes the why is you got to release this. Like, it's still stuck in the body. When are you going to let go? Your body's like bringing it up so that you can do something with it. And if you just keep repressing it and shoving it down, you're going to repress the feelings, and then your communication is affected by that. And then a woman calls you out on something, you feel insecure because you don't know how to talk about an emotion. You don't know how to deal with it because you don't understand it. So you lash out. Or you don't understand it, so you go run away and you hide, or you ignore her, or you change the subject, which is another avoidance tactic of like, hey, how about we go out to this nice restaurant? It's your favorite. And like guys end up doing things like this. So do women, but like I work with guys. So guys start doing these things to suppress the emotion even further. And it turns into this, based on them not understanding it and not them looking at it because it's uncomfortable. And a lot of guys feel the insecurity around emotions because it's like, I don't understand this as well as women seem to. So I feel less of a man. I feel out of control. I feel like a pussy. A lot of different thoughts and beliefs come up in men because it's like, I feel like I should know this. She seems to know it. Why don't I? Fuck this. And it's kind of like this factor of like, I got to run away or I got to react defensively to get out of this situation of emotion because I don't know what to do with it. I don't know how to communicate through it because I don't understand it. So it's like the understanding is the most important piece. And that's why to make men emotionally intelligent, more intelligent than they are, is to help them understand and sit with the emotion before it turns into something that can lead to abuse or something that can lead to self-harm or, an abusive relationship, them attracting toxic partners because they don't feel like they deserve a good partner based on this feeling. Or, I just had a new podcast episode with a physical therapist doctor, and he was talking about men suppressing their emotions so deeply that it leads to back pain, and that most men's back pain is due to suppressed emotion because they don't breathe. They don't feel relaxed when they're dealing with emotions. They just shove it away. And it's this tense subject because they feel insecure around it. So it's like, bringing it back to the answer of your question, it's really helping guys understand it so that they can express it in a way that feels good and confident. And, something as simple tactic I do with my clients is like, hey, you're feeling this way. It keeps coming up in you. Why don't you take some time tonight to just answer these journal questions? I'll give you a few journal questions. If you happen to cry, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Like if you happen to get really frustrated and pissed, it's okay. Don't worry about it. If you happen to get really happy for some reason and a memory comes up, write down the memory and we'll talk about it next call. So it's like giving them permission to hey, go do this exercise, telling them what to do so they have direction, and then giving them permission to whatever happens, whatever reaction comes up, it's all right, just sit with it. Just stay there. And then they know exactly what to do. It's like, all right, she said something may happen, whatever happens, I'm okay. It's normal, so that's cool. All right, I'll just write this out. And then, sometimes a guy will say Steph, I got really emotional when I did that and I cried. I don't remember the last time I fucking cried. And they get a little embarrassed. And I'm like, and they'll actually say, but it felt good. After it actually felt good. And I feel like there's more there. So I'll tell them, all right, next week, I want you to set some time aside next week for this same exercise. If you happen to cry again, cool, that's fine. But if you get really emotional, how much time are you going to allow yourself to get really emotional and or to stay pissed about that thing? Let's give a time frame. And then I'll give them permission to take some time to just emotionally let loose and then also cut themselves off. So, and that brings back the control of the manhood where they're not just all right, Steph's telling me to cry all weekend. It's no, I'm giving you permission for space to cry. Do it first to give yourself an amount of time where you need, and then cut yourself off and say, all right, I'm going to get my shit back together and I'm going to focus forward now that I gave myself that time. So a lot of it has to do with giving men understanding. So a new perspective, giving them permission and direction of how to navigate the emotion. And then also giving them that time frame where it's not just all right, Steph wants me to cry or be emotional or be pissed about this thing. It's no, we're going to give yourself permission and a time. Then you're going to tell me when you're ready to cut it off. So it's this helps them gain control over their emotional state and understand it better. This
is gold. I love it. So follow-up question. I have typically with my clients, I do the same thing. I have some people who they want to sit with their emotions way too long and just kind of wallow in that. And then there's others who are they just don't feel it. And so it's kind of that balance. You had mentioned journaling, and that's something I do a lot with my clients. I'm curious if you had mentioned, a healthy way to express these emotions. Do you have any other tactics or tools that you recommend to your clients?
Besides journaling?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mostly it's journaling. I have them talk things out. Sometimes writing things down, writing bullet points, and then having themselves talk out in more detail what they wrote in the bullet point. because that's just another level of getting it out of your body, right? So it's like journaling is one way to release. It's an emotional release because you're writing it out. You're getting it out of the, the mental eye and onto the physical eye. It's like, it's a way of seeing it out of your body and actually feeling a release. So another stronger release is to also verbalize the feelings or verbalize the situation. So you're getting out vocally as well as verbally written, right? So it's like when you can find different forms of release. Another way is breathing techniques. I tell my clients I have a breathing podcast episode that I did with the breath coach. So I'll either send them that episode and tell them to go through that. It's like an hour long. So that's a way for them to open up, because a lot of guys, it's hard for them to open up and they're just like, all right, think about it, but I don't feel anything. So often breath work, once they start that halfway through, they almost always start feeling emotional, because when you breathe, it's a way to release emotion as well. So that's like a trigger to help the body have a cathartic release. So breathing, writing, verbalizing, sometimes like doing a workout first is another trigger point to get emotion out. So like doing journaling exercise after certain things like workouts or endurance training. There's just like, I'm trying to think, there's definitely another one I do all the time. Even talking to friends, like talking to certain people who you can get different perspectives on about yourself, like asking them, what do you think about me when it comes to this? And having a really good friend that you trust can be a great exercise to see another viewpoint of your value. Like I just had a client today I was talking to, came back to me and he said, I asked my 3 good friends, because this is one of his exercises from our last call. I asked one of my three friends sent me an email back when I asked him what he found valuable as far as our friendship goes. Like, what's the value he sees in me? Why is he friends with me? And this guy wrote this like awesome message that was really like direct and really clear. And at the end, my client was like, this last part, I teared up, because it's like, he's like, I can't believe like I teared up, but it was so awesome. Like it was something I never recognized I did, but I like intentionally always try to be that kind of guy, but I didn't think anyone saw it or like noticed it.
I love all this. This is all great. So if people are practicing this stuff, they're journaling, they're allowing themselves to cry. And, I'm sitting over here and I'm like, cool. All right. Steph says like, it's cool to cry. And one thing you told me, is like, all guys are going through this shit. All guys have these thoughts. You're not alone. That's important to remember, that like, you're not a pussy. You're not a little bitch. Like this is all normal stuff. So now I'm sitting over here and I'm feeling all these feelings, and my girlfriend broke up with me and I'm just like bawling my eyes out. And you said, okay, what do we do next? What's the next step? All right, I'm going to start thinking positive thoughts. We start doing these things. Maybe someone's listening to this and is like, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to sit and cry. I don't cry. I'm having these old thoughts, right? I'm a man. I don't do this. Like, yeah, sure, I'll try journaling, but maybe they're still a bit hesitant to go down that route. What is the outcome when men are able to do this, when they're able to start feeling their feelings and their emotions, and they allow themselves to cry, and they're just like, okay, I felt sad. All right, take a deep breath and let's get intentional about what I want from, the next girl that I meet, or things like that.
So like, what's like the next step?
Sorry, no. So my question is like, if we're able to get vulnerable, what is this outcome? How do your clients, like they make this big transformation? What's life like now for them?
Yeah. So once they get comfortable with it, like I said, this leads to better, because the suppression of emotion leads to negative forms of communicating with partnerships, and not just romantic, but all relationships are damaged. So when guys, so I'll talk about what happens as far as damage goes when you're emotionally suppressed as a man. So, the communication, like I said, there's the avoidance factor, the lashing out, the defense mechanisms in terms of communication. That stuff happens. There's lack of boundaries, because the less you prioritize yourself and focus on your value and strength, the more you allow people to treat you like shit and take advantage of you, take advantage of your time and energy. Things like that will happen. Even just stress, allowing stress to really weigh down on you because you don't have a way out. You don't have any way to release the stress. So a lot of men just live with this constant stress that's just reoccurring. And what does that lead to in itself? That leads to excessive, masturbation or watching porn, things that also deplete energy and also cause negative habits that men don't want. So there's things, these negative side effects also go into negative habits and other side effects that are just bringing them down this, spiral. So when guys start doing this work of understanding their emotions, which is essentially understanding themselves and being okay, understanding themselves and being okay with what comes up and just accepting it as like, okay, like this is part of me. Like, do I want this or do I want to let this go? And like, if I want this, how do I work through it? What do I want more of in my life? And that's really what it is. Like when I take guys through emotion, it's hardly ever focused on like, all right, we need to cry and release emotion. Like I never word it like that. Like that's what they do. But it's like, it's always talking to them about, okay, like, how was your week? First of all, let's start with the wins. And then, how was, like, what are the challenges of the week? And then they'll talk about it. I'll be like, why do you think you had that thought? That's kind of interesting. Like, let's dig into that. So it's more of like a curiosity, like, oh, okay. And then it leads them into this place of being more vulnerable. And by the time he's so opened up and trusting in our conversation and vulnerable, then when I mention the point of like, journaling and doing this work, they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like, yeah, this definitely isn't a good thought or feeling. I definitely should get rid of this. Because it's like talking through the logic. What helps with a lot of guys is like making it logic, like talking more, starting with the logic factor of like, hey, like this definitely isn't working for you, right? Like think about like you just having that reoccurring thought. What do you think that's doing to your work? What do you think that's doing to your relationships? And they're like, yeah, probably not helping. That makes sense, right? Okay, we need to get rid of this emotionally. All right, how about you do this exercise? That's what will get rid of it. So anyway, that's how I like transition it. And then by the time the outcome, what your question was once they understand the downward spiral they've been in, they accept that they want to change, which is a huge part. They have to accept, they have to like not play the victim. They have to realize, all right, I want to change and I'm humble enough to ask for help. And then I take them through that transition process. And on the outside, opposite end, they do start prioritizing themselves and their emotions. And when they feel something that doesn't feel right, they call it out and they call out the bullshit instead of trying to escape from it in, habits that don't work for them. They're like, wait, I don't want to do this. What do I want to do based on the goals I told Steph? What do I want to do more of? What's that positive habit I'm supposed to turn to whenever I feel like doing this thing I don't want to do? Okay, I'm going to do that instead. So it's like, they start taking on more positive habits. They start focusing more on their goal and that man they want to be. They get happier. Like they start laughing more. They start joking more. Whenever they have like stress, they're like, I had a really stressful day and a lot came on, but I kind of reframed it for the first time. And I was like, whoa, like this is actually exciting. This doesn't have to be stressful. Like this could be fucking cool. Like, and they start seeing things differently and like their body language changes and their clothes are more put together because they're finally prioritizing themselves. And then when they prioritize themselves and their emotions, they set boundaries because you don't allow people to take advantage of you and waste your time and energy when you don't do that yourself. So when they start taking themselves more seriously and call out their wins and have that self-recognition, they feel like a valuable guy. Like one exercise I have is like, make a list of 30 things that show you're a valuable man. Like you bring value to yourself, to your friends, to a loved one. Like what's all the value you have potentially and that you have right now? Make a list of 30 things. And these guys will do it. And after that list is always, the exercise is always blowing them away because they're like, holy shit, like I never really thought of myself like this until I did this. And fuck, like I just like, and my clients will tell me like, I've been reading that every morning. I'm like, I didn't even tell them to read it. They just read it and they felt so good reading it that it's their go-to whenever they feel like they're in a slump or going the opposite way. So it's like just taking on it. My clients will even say, I thought it would be stupid. Like I thought the exercise was stupid that you gave me, but I just did it because I'm paying you. So so like, but once I did it, holy shit, like that makes a difference. And it's just, having the trust and taking the action, no matter how dumb it seems. No matter how it seems dumb because you never did it. Like that's why it feels dumb. And you have to, what I ask guys is like, all right, are you better off doing like an exercise that maybe appears corny or are you better off staying in this shit mindset where you fucking hate yourself? Like what's dumber, honestly? Like what's I don't know. Like that's how I like to phrase it is, are you better off trying something that maybe is corny, but could potentially change your life? Or you'd rather sit in your shit? Like pick one.
Oh my God.
So they usually,
sorry, I'm fired up over here. It's so good. What you're doing right now is not working. You might as well try this exercise and see if this works. It must be why I'm feeling so good lately. I haven't masturbated in weeks. I have had some stressful days, but I sit with my emotions and I'm like, what is going on? What can I do to improve? And I think that like, what value do you bring? And it's like reminding myself like, oh, say for example, I have a few sales calls and I don't land them. Instead of being like this downward spiral of like, well, I'm clearly a shitty coach. Nobody wants my service. I suck. Then what's going to happen? You're not going to show up for the next person the way you normally would, or as your higher self would. So instead, writing down, how do I bring value? You know what? I have helped all these people. Look at my last clients who did X, Y, Z. It's kind of going back to what we talked about earlier and celebrating those wins. But it's just kind of continuing that upward spiral of, like you said, you start to live a happier life. I'm a great anecdote of it. I work hard on a lot of this stuff, and instead of grabbing a beer or whatever, or masturbating to make myself feel better, it's like, let's sit with those emotions. And how am I feeling right now? And what does this mean? And also, like, what is the universe trying to teach me right now? Oh shit, I didn't make sales calls, or like another failed relationship. What is the world telling me? Maybe, like you said, like I need to look inward and figure some shit out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's a great way to look at it too. That always keeps you on that upward momentum. Because what I tell my guys is like, shit's always going to happen. Like, it's not like life is always going to be fun and dandy. So like when shit hits the fan, how are you going to react? Like, that's the most important part. Like when she rejects you, how are you going to react? It's not about her. It's about you and your reaction. And your reaction comes from your emotional control. And once you start understanding your emotions, you can control them. You can't control what you can't understand first. So it's like, there's so many ways in life, sales call example, like my clients have sales calls and it's like, oh, I fucked up my calls this week. I'll be like, all right, what did you learn from those calls? What can you do better in your next calls? How is this a lesson for you? Like, let's focus it in that direction where it's making you better. It's making you wiser. Like, see it that way. And then you can react based on how you feel. Like when you see it that way, your energy shifts, right? And you have a better energy going into your next call. Cause it's like, all right, now I have an idea of what can go better with that energy versus, all right, I fucked my last one up. Shit, hope this goes well. Like there's a major difference in action. And that's why it always goes back to like, how are you interpreting the event? And then how are you emotionally taking in, mentally flipping it, and then pushing forward. So it's just like, which direction do you want to go in? What do you need to do to get in that direction? A lot of it has to do with emotion. And if emotion feels weird for guys, it's simply because you're not used to it. That's it. Like once you get used to it and you're comfortable with yourself and your thoughts and your feelings, then it's like, all right, like especially in communication with women. Like I have a client who has a girlfriend, another client who has a wife. So like when they, and my client today was actually telling me this too, when they realized that they're like, now that I understand where I am, I can be more empathetic with her. And it's kind of like when I feel like emotionally strong, I can hold better space and hold a masculine frame for my woman when she's freaking out. And like, maybe she's just PMSing, but that takes off, like that sets off a lot of guys when a woman's just simply being emotional or like a little bitchy. Like a lot of guys will get defensive because it's like they take it personally. When like once you have an emotional understanding and you can empathize more with people and you realize that like when she's just like shit testing you or being a little bitchy based on her PMS, you could just be like, all right, you're being a little bitchy. Like, I love you, but this got to stop. It turns into more lightness. There's more play in the communication. There's more, depending on your girl, like you can talk to her. I don't know what your girlfriend's like, so don't say that to anybody.
I love that. My ex, wake up one morning and all of a sudden it's like, we had a great night, wake up the morning and it's like, say one thing and it's like, what the fuck just happened? Like, is this really how she wants to start the day? And I go pee and I see a tampon wrapper in the garbage and I'm like, oh, I know what's happening. It's like, you think after 7.5 years, I would have picked up on this, but it's still a surprise to me.
Yeah. And it is, but it's like, even when she's not PMS, even when she's just like a little moody, it's like, all right, I'm not going to let her mood get to me. Like my clients start thinking along those terms of like, all right, she's in this mood right now. That doesn't determine my mood. And if she's being disrespectful to my clients, they know how to say, hey, you're disrespecting me right now. Like I feel disrespected by the way you're speaking with me. Like, can you talk a little different right now? And it's just like having guys need to be confident in themselves to be able to call that shit out, because a lot of guys can't call their women out in that way because they have a fear of losing her because she validates them, So it's like when guys are able to lose that validation because it only comes from their woman, when they like don't need that from her, they can stand up for themselves. They can hold boundaries in a partnership. And when they hold boundaries, guess what? That's fucking sexy. Women like that when a guy can stand for himself and has a backbone. That's the difference between a nice guy and like a sexy guy is like the nice guy, right, doesn't have a backbone. He's just always trying to please because he needs validation for himself. The guy who's actually nice and kind-hearted, but also gives off a sex appeal is a guy that has a backbone. He doesn't need to please her. He wants to please her, but if she, he doesn't need it to make himself feel like a man. And that's the difference there. I think a lot of guys need to realize too. And that comes from emotional awareness of self, because you can't be a confident guy unless you understand all parts of you. And your emotions are a huge part. So it's just going to shift into so many, upswings when it comes to communication with women as well, because women, for the most part, don't always remember what you say. They remember how you make them feel. And when a guy is super confident and he comes across just like fully authentic and confident and not needing to please her and just still feels good about himself, regardless of what she does, it's like, oh shit, like that's the guy I want to be with. That man is strong. Like when women think of a strong man, we think of a man who's like unshakable mentally and emotionally. It's not about the muscles, because you could have all the muscles in the world and be the weakest guy in the room. It's like your strength comes from your emotional and mental control over yourself as a man. That's what makes you strong. That's what women want. And the more you can do that, the more sex you are, the more sex you're going to have, the more women you're going to attract. Like that's it. Guys need to realize like this is important stuff.
All right, guys listening, go rewind the past 1 minute and become unshakable. That is really good.
It's sexy. I fucking love that.
Yeah, man, this is so good. I'm taking it all in. Steph, I'm curious, what is the hardest part about your job being a coach? What do you struggle with to help your clients?
I would say it's really interesting. I would say that sometimes it's hard for me. I guess this is kind of personal, but this is what comes to mind. Is like it's hard for me to be very feminine because out of fear that I might lead a client on or say like the wrong thing. So I tend to have a very like directness about me where I try to balance, because I need that feminine to give them that right perspective, right? But I also can't be flirtatious, I can't be like luring them in. Like I have to be very cautious because sometimes I think the line is more blurred for men than it is for women when it's like perceiving being hit on or being flirted with in that way. So I really try to be as professional as possible. And it's not hard for me to be professional at all. My clients are super respectful guys too. So I've never had an issue around that or given like I've never had a situation where I gave someone the wrong impression, but I think that's just an underlying fear for me. And it's like, I feel like I want to be more feminine, but my job sometimes suppresses that femininity. So that's like personally what makes my job working with only men all day, talking to guys about their like emotional problems for the most part is like what kind of suppresses a part of me. And I'm not blaming them, but it's just like the nature of the job. So it's like up to me to obviously fix that and obviously make more space for my feminine. And yeah, so that I don't hold resentment around my job for me not feeling fully feminine as I want to.
This is a great conversation in itself because I think, I work with a lot of personal trainers, a lot of women who might be surrounded by a lot more men in the gym and things like that. And even in the corporate world, right? Women might have to act a little more kind of like what you're saying, if it's maybe more masculine or they feel like they do, maybe they don't, maybe they shouldn't. Maybe
I don't, but I feel like more masculine with them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I hear you. Man, I'm a little flirtatious, and you can get me into a little bit of trouble. Maybe it's the hair, but I'm curious. What for you are you able to do outside of work to make sure you're still, having that nice balance of, having your feminine energy show up and make sure you're taking care of yourself?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question, and I did a lot more of this when I was living in California about a year ago. And I just moved to New York City. So it's like I had like 7 really close girlfriends and I belonged to an aerial studio. So I was constantly pole dancing and like being upside down dancing and twirling and like going on the lyra, like the big hoop. And that was super feminine. Like it's a very feminine sport, aerial dance. Plus being around girlfriends that I built relationships with for the last 3 years. So I think that missing that makes me feel this way again, where I'm like craving more feminine. I also just took up Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which didn't help to bring out my feminine. But it's just like, all right, like I'm realizing this is a personal thing that I need to prioritize and focus on. Like, what can I do now in New York City since I'm just building friendships? I don't have very tight female friendships yet. And I'm also, took on a more masculine sport. So it's like, what do I need to do to bring more of that out of me? I think a lot of it, is going to be Probably I'm going to look at an aerial studio in New York. So of course they have them in New York, and now with the shutdown, like things are more lax around opening back up and whatnot. But yeah, that's a good question, because the only thing that comes to mind is what's worked for me in the past, and that's girlfriends and my studio. So I think doing more creative things to be in my feminine is also helpful. So like going outside on the grass and like meditating or drawing, or I'm a terrible drawer, but sometimes I like to color. I don't draw, I color. Nice. Like coloring or doing something creative. I started playing piano too, so that's more of a creative part of me. But yeah, these are like more ideas. They need to be more set in my schedule now that I'm talking about this. So thanks for bringing that out of me, because it's definitely something I want to work on.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I can definitely resonate. I'm curious how much you feel like it's like taking a dose of your own medicine, like constantly coaching clients. And then also, you know, taking a step back to be like, okay, I need to do these things. Or like, I know for me, sometimes I'll catch myself. I might be struggling with something. I'm like, oh, what'd you tell your client today? Let's do that for yourself.
Totally. Yeah, I do the same. I always catch myself. I'm like, wait, what would I tell a client? What would I tell a client? You know? And I recently got a concussion from jujitsu, and this happened 2 months ago. So like, that's put me in a really negative mindset, because I have these symptoms that I can't control that just take over parts of my life that I never had limitations. And now all of a sudden I can't do those things. And it's like really, it gets to me. And I just like, my mom will have to like kind of coach me and be like, what would you tell your client right now? Like you're all pissed off, and like, it's okay to be mad and frustrated, but like, what can you do to look at this video, this girl has like one arm and she's like finding a way. And like, so she like tries to like change my perspective like that, but that at least, and I don't always agree with the ways that she does it, but I do like being kind of called out on my shit, because I call my clients out on their shit. And I'm not currently seeing a therapist. I have a coach and mentors, but I'm not seeing a therapist to talk about like the frustration of this injury. So I just have like a business coach is what I meant to say. So it's like having someone call out my bullshit when it comes to me reacting negatively and getting caught in that spiral is really important. So I'm glad that I have close friends who are like, hey, look at this though. Like you're crushing it here, and like, you're going to get better, and like, it's going to be okay. Like, how do you want to look in 3 months? Yeah, that can happen. That's possible. Like, so it's just reiterating the stuff that I tell my clients and having the support system around me to remind me of that. Cause we all need accountability, like you guys too, like just cause we coach people all day and help them doesn't mean we don't have our own shit. Like, it's like we all as humans, we deal with shit. No matter how much we know, we're going to deal with shit. We're going to have arguments. We're going to have uncomfortable situations. Like we're going to have injuries that limit us. Like, and it's like going back to what I tell myself about this concussion thing is like, I'll have a really shitty day where I have like horrible headache and my vision is blurry. And I'm just like, you know what? Today is going to be a shit day. Today's going to be a fuck you day, and that's okay. But tomorrow I'm going to pick myself back up, and I'm going to make these phone calls, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. So sometimes it's just like giving the space, like I do to my clients, to myself, and just being like, all right, today I'm okay to be frustrated with myself, but tomorrow I'm not. So it's like having that space too.
Yeah, absolutely. This is partly why we have this podcast, because selfishly, we just want to learn from other people. And it's like already on this call, I guarantee Matt and I are going to have some dope conversations about dating and girls and, how we show up and things like that. And it's a way of getting coaching. And I love what you said of like, practicing what you preach. And, it sounds like you just make choices to be where you want to be. And, our podcast is called Modern Happiness, and we believe happiness is a choice. And we sent you a questionnaire and asked, what are 3 things you want to talk about? And you said choosing happiness. That was one of them. So I would love to hear more about that. If you could elaborate, what does happiness look like for you? How do you choose that on a day-to-day basis?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this kind of, and it's interesting because like my mom knows that I'm like super, because I'm visiting my parents in Jersey right now, and my mom knows that I'm super all about like, you get to choose your reality, you get to choose your feelings. So that's why like when I was struggling with the concussion a few days ago, she was like, Steph, you can choose fear or you can choose hope. Like, which one are you going to choose? What are you choosing right now? And like, I knew I was choosing fear because I was just like, what if I lose my vision? What if this happens? Like, this is so fucked up. Why did this happen to me? And it was totally fear-based. And it was just, she was like, but you're choosing that. You don't have to. And it was just this reminder like, wow, like she's right. And this is what I always preach as well, is like, you get to choose how you want to feel. You get to choose what direction you take. And part of that is, like we said in the beginning, is like having a clear idea of where you want to go and knowing what you want to choose during these times. And I think it's important to like have a lifestyle that excites the hell out of you, and having feelings associated to that, and like having a reminder of those feelings, like who do you want to be and how do you want to feel about your life, so that when you are going in a shit situation, you can refer to that, whether it's a list, whether it's like, a certain specific memory where you close your eyes and you think about it and you put the feelings in your body. And it's good to always have that, because you got to know, like, life is a roller coaster always. Like, you're going to have times when it brings you down, but only you get to choose how you feel about the down. Like, you will go down, but how are you going to interpret the down? And then what feeling are you going to choose around it? So yeah, I think that's a big part of just choosing. And I tell my clients this too, where a lot of guys will make excuses for things. And I don't even think they realize they're doing it most of the time. So I always call them out, and they'll say things like, oh, well, I didn't have time to work out like 4 days a week, but I did 3. So, and then I'll say, okay, well, you told me last week you would do 4. So like, why didn't you said you had time for 4. Why didn't you do the 4? And like, oh, well, this thing came up. And I'm like, okay, well, how long does a workout actually take? Like, we said like a minimum of 20 minutes, right? And he'll be like, yeah, but I just didn't have, like, did you not have the time, or did you not choose to do it? And it's like, they'll finally be like, I didn't choose to do it. Okay. I'm like, okay, so that's, you just didn't choose it. That's okay. Like, but tell me that. Like, be honest with yourself, be honest with me. Like, don't talk this bullshit. It's not real, So it's just reminding us, like, even in our actions, we have choices, and we get to choose what we prioritize. We get to choose how we feel. And I think, like, we don't get to choose our emotions, because emotions are innate within us, and feelings are interpretations of emotion. So you get to choose how you interpret your emotional state. And another thing that often happens with my clients and with everyone in general is, like, they'll feel anxiety and they don't even really know why they feel anxiety. Some of the time, sometimes they do know why, but the body interprets, has the same feeling as anxiety is the same feeling as excitement in the body. So the body feels the same feeling for each of these two emotions. So you get to interpret, okay, do I want this to be anxiety right now, or can I make this excitement right now? Like, you get to choose which one do you want it to be, because the body, it's no different. To the physical body, it's no different. So how can you, like, choose your interpretation? What do you want it to be? Is there anything exciting in your life that you're building anticipation towards? Okay, how can you think about that right now while you're feeling this uneasiness in the body, and shift this whole feeling of uneasiness to excitement for that thing? And it's just allowing them to realize, wow, I can really, like, manipulate my body and my actions based on me choosing. And it kind of is this positive manipulation where you're kind of like fucking with your head, but in a good way, based on what you want. And it's so powerful. Like, our interpretations are everything. Like, think about our entire life is made up on how we interpret things that happen to us. That's it. That's literally life in a nutshell. Like, our life is how we interpret things that happen to us. And that creates your mood, which then creates your personality as a whole. And then that's the person you are. That's your identity. That's how people see you. So it all goes back to your interpretations, which goes back to, like, why I'm doing this new course for men, is helping them interpret, these emotional events in a way that strengthens them, not deflates them.
Yes, Steph, we are so on the same page. I love this.
Yeah, we got big smiles over here.
Oh, man.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it ties into everything you've said before. It's like giving the men permission, and then also taking responsibility for your life. And I use that same example with my clients. I talk about sensations in the body. So I really have them get aware of, like, oh, if I have a pit in my stomach, and it's like you said, it could be, that could be scary. That could be nervousness or anxiety, or that could be excitement. And it's like just helping people become aware. And ultimately, I think that's the issue that so many people in life have, is they don't take control. They don't take responsibility for that. They just let life happen to them. And man, this has been incredible. I think it's so cool. We started talking about relationships with men, but I think that really you're just helping them discover how to be a better person and be the best version of themselves, which is super cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to think, like, the main message is really tying who they are to their future self and filling that gap, bridging that gap in between through action and emotional expression. Yeah.
That's it. Action. And you said before when explaining choosing happiness, you said choice so many times. And Taylor said this, mood follows action. And what is that action we're taking? Is it the journaling? Like what steps do you have to get out of this? Or even if it's just a thought, am I nervous or am I excited? And that's the action you can take to reframe that scenario. So yeah, I've loved this conversation. Taylor, we gonna wrap it up.
Good interviewers. These are really
I would, thanks so much. Really appreciate your time. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about you have your program, Relationship Mastery for Men. What does that look like? Maybe just give some details. Anybody that might be interested, we'll definitely, link your contact info and that sort of thing.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So Relationship Mastery for Men is going to be a 8-week course helping guys dig into everything we talked about today. And along with the 8-week course is 1-hour Zoom calls once a week with other guys who are going through the course themselves. So it will be a group or self-paced course. So guys will have the option, but really, the outcome is all this good stuff of just having confidence as a man to live to his fullest expression and be the man he wants to be and come out feeling like, for the first time, and for a lot of men, it's, feeling proud of himself. Not enough guys feel proud of the man they are. And I want guys to feel more of that. And I know that this program is going to do exactly that. And I'm excited for it. So
that's awesome. So where can people find you? Where can people find this program?
Yeah, the program will be coming out. It will be released at the end of this month. I'm not sure exactly when yet, but I will be doing a pre-launch pretty soon in the next week or so. So if everyone just goes to my Instagram, that's where I do all my announcements and I'll be posting about it. So if they go to Steph Ganowski, you'll probably spell it out, right?
Yeah, well, we'll have it for them. And and for reference, it is the middle of June 2021, if anyone's wondering. You're listening to this at a later time. Awesome. I love this.
It will be launched. Yeah.
Relationship Mastery for Men. So good. Steph, it's been such a pleasure to have you. Guys, even girls, I'm sure you got a lot from this, but guys, if you want to be sexy, if you want to be sexy, get in touch with your emotions. Then you can become unshakable and live a happier life. And that's what this is all about. So yeah, thanks again, Steph. It was such a pleasure having you. And until next time, everyone, peace.